We'd like to take this opportunity and thank you for allowing Airdrome Aeroplanes to introduce you to the superior line of home-built kits on the market today. Airdrome aeroplane kits are constructed with the most unsurpassed quality materials available. Every kit passes several stages of quality control before it ever leaves the factory. You can be assured that your kit will bring you years and years of dependable and safe flying. Again, thank you, and we hope you find this presentation enjoyable and informative. Now let's take a trip to the factory as Robert Bosley gives us a step-by-step process of building a rudder that can be used on the Fokker DR1, D6, the Eindecker E3, or the Dream Classic.
This morning is we're going to start building a Dream Classic. This table, nothing but 3 2x6s on edge with 2 sheets, 1/2-inch thick particle board, setting on top of sawhorses. You can put shims on there if you need to. Table doesn't have to be perfectly level. Obviously, the flatter it is, the easier it is to work with, but as close level as you can get. What I've done here is I've drawn this rudder out full size. I'm going to start building the rudder. I don't know if you can see it on the table here. We got the rudder spar. Come up, we've got the bow. This bow pierces the front wall of the spar, and a wood screw goes in the back. Goes over the top, pierces both front and rear wall in the back, continues on around, and it actually pierces the rear wall down here at the lower. There will be a hinge on here. Something else we're going to want to slide our top hinge on and leave it float before we build it. This one rib here also pierces the rear edge of the spar. The other 2 ribs just come up flush to it. So I've drawn this out full size. This should take you about 30 minutes to draw that out full size. There's the plans, information I worked from. I've got one other thing that I use to bend that. Here's some wood blocks of different diameters. I'll screw these down at the table, and I'll actually bend my material around that. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and build my rudder spar, and then I'll come right back to you and we'll go from there. Okay, now I've gotten all the rudder kit parts out of the box. We get the rudder spar, the rudder bow, 3 ribs, the dowel rod, gussets, control horn, gusset, nuts, bolts, screws, and hinge assemblies. It is now, let's see, 9:51. I'm going to go ahead and build the rudder spar, and I'll come back to you. Okay, it's been just a few minutes here. What I've done is I've cut that top angle on there. Then I drilled a hole in the back wall and in the front wall. Then I laid a drill bit in there, a 1/2-inch drill bit, and then I hammered, set it down on the table. I've got one hand, so I laid it down on the table. I used a rubber mallet, and I formed this down, tapering about the last 2 or 3 inches, rounding it out. You have to do that step first. Now that we've done that step, we're going to put it in place here. We're going to mark the front and the rear so that we can drill in the front here, in the rear here, and in the rear here. We want to do this first, make sure that we're oriented like that prior to doing that. So I'll come back to you in a couple minutes. Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm marking this. First thing it is, I come in on the center line, put a tick with a felt tip here and back there. Okay. Actually, I have one more to do right back here. It's hard to do with holding everything. What you do is you hold this thing straight, and if you take a straight edge like this and you set it down on the table and you drag it along the edge of the tube, what you'll get is a little scratch mark, right? Let's see if you can see it or not. Oh, I pushed a button on the side of this thing. Get that off. Right? I don't know if you can see it because of the shadow or not, but it leaves a nice little scribe mark. And while holding it down, if I do it on both sides, I got them exactly across from one another. So anyway, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, now the rudder spar is done. Drill my 1/2-inch holes to the back side and my pilot hole for the screw in this side. And then there, we had to do it on the opposite side. Next step, I'm going to set all this stuff aside now, and I'm going to bend the bow, put the bow on it. I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, now what I've done is I've bent this rudder bow into a full circle. I usually start at that point. What I've got here on this block is a 24-inch radius. And over here I got a small one. I'll be using them all throughout the project, a 12-inch radius. Just wedge it in there. Do this one-handed. Pull it around and just let it bend around. Anyway, get it into a full circle to start with. Then I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to mark my starting point. If you don't want to go into a complete circle, you don't have to, because there'll have to be some bend let out later, but that's just usually where I start. Now I'll start at the front and I'll just work it. Right, see right here I didn't actually need that much, but I can straighten it out and I'll work it on into the shape. I've got this bow. We started around here and I just progressed right on around. You can see it laying right along the line here. See the line right there? Progress all the way around the line. There's, you know, just sitting here, you can flex it and move it in just a little bit, and I've hooked it right around and come in right where this spar is. And I'm going to cut it off, and I'm actually going to assemble the thing. But anyway, it took about 9 minutes to bend this bow. If you know these guys take 2 hours and stuff, you're just wasting your time when it can be done in 9 minutes. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark. I'm going to lay this edge right where it needs to be, there in the front. I'm going to mark this edge right there, the back edge. Talking with a pin cap in my mouth. I'm going to saw that off now, and then I'm going to go and put the thing together. Okay, what I've done now, make sure your hinges are slid in place. That's our important thing that takes place now. As a rule of thumb, I always put the male half on the surface and the female half on the structure. It's just something I've always done. Not necessarily important, but I do it that way. We've pressed a dowel rod into the end of this, and we've pressed it into here, and we put the wood screw. You can see there. That thing's annoying, isn't it, Jake? Same thing here. We've pressed a wooden dowel rod in here, and we've put a wood screw into this surface. And then as we come over the top, we put our rivet in there, one on both sides. So now the actual main frame is laid out. What we're going to do now is we're going to put the rudder, rib in that supports the rudder control horn, and then 2 more false ribs, and I'll come back to you in a little bit. Okay, I've been kind of off this project for a little bit. I had to go over and set up a machining center. So what we've done is we've put the wooden dowel rod in here, cut this off, put the wood screw in here, in here, in here, in here. Again, this hinge has to float down here, and this one needs to float up here. I've marked where these parts go, and I've also made all these parts. These are the gusset plates that go right here and here on both sides. These 2 will wrap 180 around there and there. This one here will wrap around here at the base underneath the rudder control horn. And here's the rudder control horn. I've made it. It will bolt on like that. So I'm going to bolt all this together, and then we'll come back to you in a little bit. All that stuff. Okay, here we go. We've got the rudder horn installed. We've got 2 bolts vertical, if you notice here and here, and then the third one goes in the horizontal plane in between the 2. Okay, this strap supports, it's the side that supports this from twisting. We've riveted in the gusset back there. We've wrapped this. The first rivet I put was this one. Then I put this one on both sides, and then this one, which then drew this down tighter. And the same thing here. I did this one, then those 2, and then those last, which suck it down tight. Anyway, we now have a complete rudder. The hinges are in place. They'll be set later. I don't know. I'll have to come back and check my time. I think we've been about 2 hours approximately on this. I'm not sure. It may be a little less. Let's see. It says 11:25. I'm not sure what time I started. And I did have some things in between I did. So anyway, that's about how long.